Hi Snowrunner community, I just wanted to make this video about the Kodiak and the Fleetstar. I really like both of these trucks. I don't really have a preference for one over the other. I guess maybe because of my love for Kodiaks in real life, I might prefer the Kodiak a little bit, but I just wanted to make this video because everybody already knows about the Fleetstar's awesomeness. I mean, the whole community calls it old reliable. Everybody knows how great it is because you get it really early in the game, and it comes with pretty much everything available that you need at that time. The Kodiak gets overlooked because you get it also pretty early in game, but people tend to sell it because it's two-wheel drive out of the box. It can be upgraded later on, but you got to go find that all-wheel drive upgrade. So instead of doing all that, a lot of people seem to just sell it for the cash, which I totally understand. Because I like Kodiaks in real life, I didn't sell mine, I just kept it in my garage, but I actively sought out those upgrades early on. So anyway, I just wanted to compare these two trucks because they are so evenly matched, but they do have some key differences, which I actually found more of as I dove a bit deeper into it. So I just want to note that both of these trucks for this comparison are fully upgraded, the best engine available, the off-road transmission, the biggest and most aggressive tires possible. So let's get into it. So I've noticed a lot of comparison videos on YouTube for Snowrunner tend to compare speed and acceleration between trucks, which is fine, but to me, I just don't really think it applies very much in Snowrunner. It's not really about how fast you could do something, it's more about your capability to do it. With the exception of contests. Contests do actually take speed into consideration technically because you got to get something done as quick as possible. So I did test it out. The Kodiak can hit 31 miles an hour top speed and the Fleetstar can hit 36. And there's 0 to 30 time, I measured that, and it's at about 3 seconds apart. So the Fleetstar does have the advantage here for sure. It's probably because it has that extra engine option. So it just has probably more power and better power to weight ratio. So its acceleration and top speed do go head and shoulders beyond the Kodiak. So here's another thing that doesn't necessarily matter in Snowrunner, and that's snorkels. The reason why I say that is because I did test this out, and the snorkels do raise the level at which the water needs to be to actually start damaging your engine, but unless you dive into the water just nose first as hard as you can from like a cliff, you're not really going to take engine damage because the trucks float in Snowrunner. So it doesn't really matter that the Kodiak's is taller because the Fleetstar is tall enough that you're going to start floating before you take any damage. So really any snorkel is just as good because really as long as it's above your hood line, you're not going to take any damage. You'll be fine. So in actual practice, this is just a dead tie between the two. So onto the stuff that does matter. Price, Kodiak is $34,800 and the Fleetstar is $31,000, so Fleetstar takes it a little bit cheaper. For customization options, this is where we start getting into the interesting and actually meaningful stuff. So starting with the Kodiak, the engines available, there are 2 of them available, as you can see right here. Really not much to say about that. Got the off-road gearbox, like a lot of trucks do, race suspension. For tires, it does top out at 43 inches. Off-road is the most aggressive if you don't count chained. Got the regular winch and diff lock and all that stuff. It's all pretty standard. So the frame add-ons, this is where it gets notable. There is one missing compared to the Fleetstar, which we'll get into, but this does have a wide array of frame add-ons, which is nice. With the Fleetstar, you can see there are 3 engine options, and that extra one does give it an advantage over the Kodiak. As demonstrated before, the acceleration and top speed is better. As far as the tires go, they are bigger. They are 45-inch tires, and it does top out at off-road spec tires as opposed to mud terrain, which aren't available for either one. Diff lock, spare tire, snorkel, again, it's shorter, but doesn't really matter. All-wheel drive, same thing. Now with the frame add-ons, this does have a couple notable differences, one being this right here, the maintenance frame add-on. It's not available for the Kodiak, but the Fleetstar does have it, which is awesome. But also notably, the Fleetstar can have both a flatbed equipped and a crane equipped simultaneously, and the Kodiak can't do that. And that is a clear advantage for getting work done because if you want to crane something with the Kodiak, you're going to have to take a trailer with you, which does make things harder. And you don't have to do that with the Fleetstar. You can just go completely self-contained, no trailer necessary, and you can have a flatbed and crane at the same time and just pick stuff up and drop it right off on your flatbed. Another notable difference is actually the availability of what's in the trailer store. For the Fleetstar, there are 9 different trailers available. The Fleetstar has the flatbed semi, the fuel carrier, the flatbed, the sideboard semi, the ramped flatbed, the maintenance, the service, and the heavy-duty lowboy. And it actually differs from what's available for the Kodiak. The Kodiak has the fuel carrier semi, the gooseneck semi, and the step deck semi available to it at the store, which again are not for the Fleetstar. Now, how much this matters will probably vary person to person, and it'll probably be pretty situational. Like maybe it'll affect you one time in an entire playthrough, but I felt like it was notable enough to mention. So here I took a measurement of the turn speed, meaning how long it takes for the wheel to go from lock to lock, from fully turned to one side to fully turned to the other side. Again, in practice, how much this matters is up for debate. It's not like you're going through slaloms and chicanes in this game. I feel like turning radius, which we'll get into here in a minute, is actually a lot more important. How fast you could change direction. I mean, I think I ran into a little bit of a scenario where it mattered, like when I was bushwhacking through some trees, and I kind of wish I could just get my nose turned a bit faster, but I really think in practice this doesn't matter, but it is a notable difference. You can see the Fleetstar does actually turn a bit faster. So real quick, I wanted to mention just the size and form factor here. They are very similar in size, for sure, but I have to say the Kodiak probably is a little bit smaller. It's a little narrower, as you can see. I think just the overall cab is smaller. And I will say that it does feel smaller when you drive it. It just doesn't feel as bulky, it doesn't feel as cumbersome. Not by a huge amount, but definitely enough to be noticeable. If I had to pick a quote winner in this category, I would probably give the Kodiak just a slight nod. Also take note, when you look at the angles, and you look at the proportions of these two trucks, you can see they're very differently proportioned. The Kodiak has just a huge amount of clearance. Even though it has slightly smaller tires, that exposure to straight up tire rubber for the approach angle is so different in the Kodiak versus the Fleetstar. You can just see a lot more of the tires exposed. And does this make a difference? Well, I actually did test this out, and I'll get to it in a minute, but it is a very interesting result. So I ran both these trucks through some bushwhacking tests here, and you know, it's kind of hard to compare, but I mean they match up pretty evenly. I will say that the Kodiak again has just a slight nod because of that tight turning radius, because of that slightly smaller form factor. It really gets through a lot of that thick brush pretty easily. The Fleetstar struggles a hair more, and this is a pretty controlled test. They're going through the exact same course. How much this will actually matter in practice will probably vary, but I think in practice they are very, very comparable. Again, if I had to choose a winner for this category, I would probably just give a tiny, tiny nod to the Kodiak. So for off-road lights, I was really curious because they're not available for the Fleetstar, and they are for the Kodiak. So I was curious, do they make a difference? Well, let's take a look here. So we have the Fleetstar pulled up, and there are off-road lights on the bumper that I have equipped for both of these trucks, just so we keep it even. Let's take a look. I think it's pretty clear that it does make a difference. You can see on the Kodiak, it's just a brighter, wider reaching, further reaching beam of light. How much does this matter? Well, in my hours put into this game, I do find that having those brighter lights, having that further reaching, wider reaching intensity, it is really nice. It's good for those tight trails at night, but also for just lighting up a friend who might be working on picking up some cargo with a crane in the middle of the night, or any sort of scenario like that. So I gotta give the Kodiak the nod on this one. Having off-road lights available is definitely an advantage. So to test turning radius, what I did was I lined up the driver's side tire with that second triangle there you can see on the ground, and I made sure that I'm as parallel with the curb as possible, as you can see, and then I lined up the front hubs with the sign that's there on the driver's side of the truck. I'm going to turn fully to driver's side lock and just go in 4 low and see where it lands. Okay, so same thing with the Kodiak, driver's side tire, lined up with the arrow, parallel as possible with the curb, and lined up the front hub with that sign there on the driver's side of the truck. Fully locked and going in 4 low. So this is really interesting. The Kodiak clearly has a tighter turning radius. I mean, we're talking like more than half a truck width, maybe like 60% of a truck width for these two trucks. That's a pretty big difference. And how much can you feel this out in practice when actually playing Snowrunner? I would say a lot. I think that it does feel a lot more maneuverable. It does feel a lot more nimble. So I gotta give it to the Kodiak on this one. This is a big advantage out there. So this is a pretty big one in my opinion, the approach angle test. So I didn't think angles mattered that much in Snowrunner, approach, departure, breakover, because of clipping and because of just weird Snowrunner physics. I just didn't think that there was much of a difference. But I did find something really interesting. I didn't really do any scientific testing on breakover or departure, mostly because I didn't feel like they made a big difference on these trucks. I feel like they're so similar. I feel like they get high centered on the same sort of thing, and I never really took damage on departure. But I did find a big difference on approach. So let's take a look here. So I'm going to try to climb this rock here with the Fleetstar, and I'm just going to approach it in all-wheel drive, diffs locked, and in low minus gear. And I'm going to try not to have momentum on my side. I'm just going to come right up to it and stop and kind of inch up until I tap it, and then just try to climb it and see what happens. And you can see it gets caught up. Pretty understandably, right? I mean, it's a very, very vertical, very steep rock, and it's getting caught up on the actual model of the Fleetstar, right on the bumper or the frame, whatever it is, it's getting caught up on. And I will try it multiple times here, and I'm going to try different angles because I want to see what it takes to get this truck up onto this rock. Obviously, no winching or any sort of assist like that, just low minus, fully locked, all-wheel drive. You can see I'm having difficulty. I am. I mean, there's no denying that. I am really trying to get this thing done, and I do eventually get there. I do have to find that line. It is there. It does exist. I just have to find that exact line, but I do eventually get there. It just takes a decent amount of work. And take note, guys, that this rock here is right in front of the farm on the first Michigan map, Black River, I think it's called. So you can test this out for yourself. So the Kodiak here, I'm going to line it up using those tire tracks that I created with the Fleetstar. And same thing, all-wheel drive, locked, low minus. Let's see what happens. As you can see, I mean, the Kodiak just doesn't care. I mean, I might be taking a slightly different line, but it doesn't really matter. I found that it doesn't matter what line I take, it always climbs this rock pretty easily. I even tried to maybe find a more difficult line. It didn't matter. It doesn't, with the Kodiak, it just climbs right up this. So I'm not saying that the Kodiak is like better or whatever, but this is pretty telling when it comes to off-roading. This, I think, does apply in practice quite a bit to what we're doing out there in those tough terrains of Russia and Alaska and Michigan. It just climbs over obstacles better. It just does, and I'm sure it has to do with the hitbox of the actual model. It just has better angles, and I think that this is a pretty telling test. And I really thought this was super interesting. So guys, I think the final impression on these trucks is that they are very evenly matched, and they do have key differences. I would say the Fleetstar is a better work truck. It definitely will get work done better, which is what we do in Snowrunner, right? I mean, that's what the majority of the campaign is getting some work done. But I think for actual off-roading, I'd give the Kodiak the nod just because of that smaller form factor, more maneuverable, slightly better angles. You take your pick. I'm not saying one's better than the other. I personally like the Kodiak a little bit better. I just think it feels better when driving it. And really, I just wanted to bring awareness to the truck because it is underrated. It is kind of overlooked because most people sell it, which I totally understand. I get why people do it, but I kind of wanted to make a video to illustrate the key differences and so kind of bring awareness to the Kodiak, and then maybe you gamers out there playing Snowrunner will give this truck a second chance. So thanks for watching, and if you have maybe any ideas of some other comparisons you want to see, preferably something comparable, not just two completely wildly different trucks, let me know, and I'll give it a shot. Thanks, bye.